Alright, it's time to make the recipe I've been waiting to try. It's Stanley Tucci's Ragu. Now let's hop into it. So to get started, you're going to need 3 garlic cloves, and we're going to need a rough chop on this, and then we're going to take some fresh oregano, and we're going to finely chop until we have about 1 tablespoon's worth. Then Tucci calls for 1 cup of roughly chopped onions, so I'm taking 1/2 of a small white onion, and I'm just giving it a medium dice. Now this recipe is great for versatility because in terms of meat, you can really use whatever you have on hand. Now the recipe calls for 1 pound of stewing beef, so I took some beef short ribs, and we're just going to make sure they're trimmed of fat. In the same fashion, I got 1 pound of pork spare ribs, and you can leave the bones on these, as once we're done cooking, they're gonna fall right off. Alright, if you guys have been around for a while, you know I only like to use San Marzano tomatoes, so we're gonna grab 2 cans of the real stuff, put it straight into a blender, and blend for about 15 seconds until smooth. You can also put this through a food mill if you want. For cooking, we're gonna want a large stewing pot, and then over medium heat, we're gonna add in a little bit of olive oil, and then our beef. So I'm placing the short ribs in, and we're only going to cook for a few minutes per side as we're just trying to get some browning. We don't want to cook them all the way through as they're going to be finished in the sauce. Once done, remove the short ribs and place on a tray off to the side. Then in the same pot, we're going to add in the spare ribs and proceed to brown all sides. Now the great thing about browning the meat first and doing everything in one pan is it's going to give us a beautiful fond. This is going to be a great base layer to our sauce, and once the meat's done, we're going to remove it, turn down the heat a touch, and then add in the onions and garlic. You're going to want to saute these for a few minutes until the onions begin to turn translucent, and then we're going to add in a 1/2 cup of a dry red wine, and you're going to simmer for about a minute or 2 until some of that alcohol has burned off. Then we're going to take a 6-ounce can of tomato paste, add it into the pot, break it apart, and cook for about a minute to get rid of some of that raw flavor. Then Tucci calls for us to fill up that can with a little bit of warm water, pour it in, and then mix around until everything is smooth. It's at this point that we are going to add in our blended tomatoes along with a 1.5 cups of some warm water, and then we're going to want to bring this to a simmer. For some of that classic flavor, we're also going to add in 3 basil leaves along with our chopped oregano, give it a good stir, and then we're going to let this thing simmer for 30 minutes with a lid slightly askew. Once done, the sauce should be a little bit thicker. Now if it's too thick, you can add in a little bit of water, but now it's time to add in the short ribs and the spare ribs and complete the cooking process. Make sure the meat is fully submerged in the sauce, and then we're going to cover with the lid slightly askew and simmer this for about 2 to 2.5 hours, or until the meat is extremely tender and falls right off the bone. About 20 minutes prior to your meat being fully cooked, you can begin to boil your pasta. Now Tucci calls for a noodle that can withstand this sauce, such as rigatoni, so I'm just going with that. Now once your meat is done cooking, you're going to notice that it's extremely tender. The spare rib I tried to pick up here ended up breaking in half, but you're going to want to remove all the meat from the sauce and just make sure to get any extra bones that may still be in there. Then we're going to take all of our cooked rigatoni, add it directly into the sauce, and stir around, making sure it's fully coated, and then you can season to taste with kosher salt and black pepper if needed. Alright, so for plating, Tucci says that traditional Ragu is not served on the same plate, but for YouTube purposes, I'm adding all the meat on the outside of a plate and then adding in plenty of our delicious pasta right into the center, and then we're going to garnish with some fresh grated parmesan cheese and then some torn basil. If you guys like the video, please like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.